community. Today on the show, we've got a comedian, storyteller, film director. I'll call him an all-around Renaissance man, and he was actually one of the first guys to tell me that he enjoyed this podcast when I started doing it. So that was very important for me to hear in that moment. On the show today, we have Alexander Scott, and he's another guy. We're both from Maryland, and I thought we had a pretty great chat. He tells me a story about his about why he left college. That's probably one of those stories that's awful when you are thinking about like a human having to overcome this, but at the same time, it's one of those kinds of stories that I think I'm starting to archive on this show. So, and it's also one of those things of like where you ultimately triumph over a thing that could have destroyed you, which I think isn't important here. It's important for me to hear because I'm still at a point where I'm letting really relatively easy stuff knock me over. So it's a good talk and it's a good listen. If anyone is in the New York City area, December 9th, I'm going to be doing my one-man show, Laughing Through the Sad, at the Tank in New York City, right in the heart of Times Square. I'm really excited about this, and I'll have more details for you as I get them. But December 9th at 8:30, mark your calendars. I'm going to be doing my one-man show again, so I'm looking forward to that. And let's go to my chat with Alexander Scott.
Especially location sound, we'll use these things.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
It's great. It's super convenient. It's not that expensive.
Very clean.
Yeah. Sounds great, and you can get pretty good audio out of it because you shoot film and videos. And
I've started to. Yeah. But I've outsourced everything that actually is like very technical and like maybe I could do, but I'm too focused on getting my vision. That right. I've outsourced that to. I'm hiring real, professional cinematographers and great sound crew, etc., which costs a lot, but leaves way less for me to worry about because I know it's in capable hands.
Right. Yeah, that's probably the smart way to go about it. Whereas I'm like, all right, what can I do by myself? I'm going to do as much as I can before I got to start outsourcing.
Well, I mean that's part of my problem is like. It's taken me so long to even get into making these videos and things that I want to be doing because I've had this idea like if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right. I'm going to have like all the best people. I'm going to really trump it up. I'm going to I have like all the goodest materials, et cetera, and so I waited so long until I had the money that I could actually pay people to do it and do it well because otherwise like I have no faith in myself to do it.
Right. I just kind of go with I think about what can I do, and then I just try to do that, and then see if I can get money to do it.
Yeah.
The thing, and this is going to bleed a little bit over into the episode I just recorded with Mo, but we were talking about creating your own nook.
Oh yeah.
In show business now.
The niche, yeah.
We're all just trying to carve out a nook, and that's what I'm trying to do with this, and
I mean, you've definitely
stand
got
up in my one man show.
Yeah.
Which. This is why I love the storytelling community, and you in particular, is because when I started doing this, you were like one of the first ones to say, "Oh, hey, that's you're doing a good job with the podcast, Will," and I really appreciated that.
Well, you just put it out, and so I think chances were pretty good I was going to be the first one to say it, other than like maybe your mom. I don't know. Does she listen to this? Or
I don't think my mom knows what a podcast is.
Of course, yeah.
She hasn't had the internet in her house since I lived there.
Well, I'll let my mom know, and she'll do the mothering for both of us.
Okay,
don't worry about it.
That sounds good.
Yeah,
because it's and you seem. Did you ever do podcasts or radio at all? Because you have the presence of.
I did radio in college, and so I had a web. I want to say web series. Why don't we want to say that? I had my own radio show on college radio network. It was called Your Town Is Next, which is now the name of my production company. And it was just me doing a bunch of dumb sketches and crap that I like a ton of things that I wrote, and then dumb pranks. Like I would go through our crappy library of CDs and whatnot, and like whatever we were getting from CMJ and other distributors, and like find like, oh, here's a Brooks and Dunn PSA that they recorded in English and Spanish. So let me play like all the Spanish versions of the ad for like 20 minutes, just because it was Friday afternoon on the campus and nobody was listening, so I might as well just like make myself laugh.
Absolutely.
And that was fun for a while, and then when I got a better time slot, I was doing a little bit more, and I started actually getting people calling in, which the shows I would never get anybody calling in unless it was like the host's friend, but somebody called in once from like Canada, I think.
Oh yeah.
And like his first name was, "You have a really good radio voice," and it's like thank you so much. I don't know how to process compliments in general, but now I don't know how to process this compliment from somebody in a foreign country who may want to take my skin and wear it. I don't know.
Or turn you into a walrus, like Kevin Smith movie.
Please, let's get as many Kevin Smith references as possible.
As many as possible,
please.
Okay, so that was probably what. Okay, so you did radio in college. What were some of the things that you learned doing radio in college? Only because I'm curious as a broadcast. I'm calling myself a broadcaster in this moment. I'm curious, like, what are some of the techniques for? I mean, being on a microphone. It was like the first thing I tell you is like try not to talk directly into the microphone. You want to sort of have it at an angle, and so that like you get less of the popping, etc. But more, it was a matter of like trust it. Like we have like big professional microphones, and they're condensers. They're probably gonna catch everything you say. Yeah. So the worst thing really is dead air. Dead air is bad radio. Don't leave any spaces, and so. You also don't want to leave a lot of ums and so forth. So you learn to fill. Kind of like what I'm doing right now because I have nowhere else to go. Right. With this anecdote. So you just kind of keep talking and don't let on that you're not sure where it's going. Pretty much. Oh, those are like... Or even if you don't know where you're going, at least like it's a journey and you take the listener on for a ride. So we're gonna ramble, we're gonna talk, we're gonna keep going down this little road. Where is it gonna take us? Not anywhere. Will please save me. that's where it helps to have somebody else in the studio. Well, that's good. And you do have like here's what I think when because I've met you before this and I've seen you around a bunch. We do the shows. We've done shows together. Largely the Dump. Yeah, largely Jake Hart's storytelling show at the great Jake Hart at the Creek. I had him on. I know. I was re-listening to it the other day. Yeah, that was a good one. Oh, re-listens, excellent. I'm getting you those clicks, man. I'm telling you. Yeah, shareable Absolutely. Media in this day. So I never picked up on your voice until just now, but there's a certain gravitas to it. Oh wow! I would almost imagine you would want to look into voiceovers or doing like that's something I'm looking into but it's one of those things where it's like there's a right now because I feel like I have a lot of creative outlets that I can reach out to. I know people who are doing it themselves. I know people who are who want to be able to do these things, and so I'm what I'm kind of doing right now, especially starting with the Dump is the Dump, which is the web series. The Dump web series. Is what we're doing is my goal is like giving as many people as possible the opportunity to either do something they want to do or do something they're already very good at and want the world to know, and that goes for myself as well. And so starting with the Dump web series and then going into some other shorts that we're working on right now, as well as I just for the first time ever I directed a stage show. Oh, which really? Is kind of strange at the Pit Underground. Forrest Hay, who does a really great live show called Crowdsourced. It's an actual it's a multimedia experience of like improvised stand up. It's really it's a great idea that it's so mimetic once you understand it, but it's really hard to explain in shorthand. Right. But he wrote this script called Signal Down for what he wanted to be an actual a television show. He doesn't really have the resources to make it into a television show, so we rejiggered it a little bit. We took a couple passes of the script and we turned it into what we could of a live show. It was still a little ramshackle because there's a lot of things that just are going to lend themselves better to television and that kind of format. Yeah. But we had a lot of fun with it. And now the people at the Pit really liked it.
And,
great.
And they want us to keep doing more. And so Forrest has more scripts, and we're going to try to bang more of that out.
Oh, spectacular.
And so like he reached out to me. He's like, hey, can you direct a stage show? I've never done it before, but what the hell, let's try. And that was a great experience in terms of like letting myself actually take an opportunity and being able to help somebody else with an opportunity they wanted to take on.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
I do tech at the Pit. That's a great That's a great system they have.
Yeah. We were down in the underground, so it was really simple. It was because I already had so much experience with the radio show in college.
Yeah.
It was it's like riding a bike, just like, oh yeah, these levels go here, press this for that, and et cetera, et cetera. And really the only thing I had to learn was there was I think it was Q something, Q Pro.
QLab.
QLab, thank you, QLab. Which actually controls the lights and projectors, etc. And even that was like simple as possible.
Yeah.
When it was just basically like, okay, we're going to this slide, we're going to that slide, etc.
Yeah, it's a great system. I've teched a couple of sketch shows. It's a great system for if you were doing like a desk piece.
Oh, sure.
And you want to have pictures behind you while you're doing like a weekend. I almost said Weekend Live. That's from Mike Birbiglia's movie.
Oh, right.
A Saturday Night Live like weekend update kind of thing.
Sure.
Awesome, man. Mm-hmm. That sounds excellent. So you strike me as almost as kind of like a jack of all trades when it comes to.
I've kind of had to be because I was never a good student, so I could never really get by on like I've got good grades, so just bring opportunities to me. It's kind of been a matter of like I have to sort of teach myself, and when something comes along, I have to have kind of the emotional fortitude to not just say no,
right,
and take whatever kind of comes along, and so that's sort of what led me from sitting around and writing and not really having anything come of my writing to trying stand-up to realizing I can sort of do stand-up, but I'm not that good. Let me try storytelling where I'm good at just babbling for a really long time.
Right.
Into sort of everything that's sort of come from that.
I see. Let's see if I can trace that a little bit. Let's start from the beginning. Where did you grow up exactly, Alexander?
So I'm from Maryland.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, actually it was something so like I think when I first really became aware of you, I'd seen you a few times at the dump and around the creek in general.
Yeah.
And in fact, it was one night where I think because of some events from Halloween, the garage area where the dump was normally held, they took the dump out of there and they were doing it in the bar area. Like they'd moved a bunch of the pinball machines out of the way.
That's right. I remember that.
So you went up and you told your story about your dad, and you mentioned like being growing up in was it Calvert County or
that's it, yeah.
And so I'm from Frederick County, and so you mentioned that, and then I don't know what it was like. You went up and everybody was doing really well. I think Micah Fox was co-hosting that night.
Yeah,
she was amazing. Everybody was really well, and then I don't know what happened. I've been on a streak. I swear to you, I don't suck that much, but I don't know. Like I went up and because I was just trying to like find some bridge to telling my story.
Yeah.
I was like, well, Carrie, Maryland, we're both, and I fumbled, and then my story just was garbage. And I sort of failed that night. And so I wouldn't blame you if you had immediately forgotten about me. It's like, this guy, no, we're not worth my time. But
I kind of remember this.
Yeah, you must at least remember that because it was an odd night in terms of going to the dump and everything being out of whack.
Yeah. Before
the stage area, quote unquote.
Right. I think because they had some sort of big Halloween show upstairs at the time.
And so everything was shuffled around.
Yeah. And this was before they got the pinball machines in, so it was just empty in that area. Wow. Okay. Yeah.
So that was things. Yeah. So I became aware. Like, oh, Maryland boys, what up?
Exactly. And you're from Frederick.
I'm from Frederick County, Newmarket specifically was where I spent the bulk of my childhood. And then when I was 12 or 13, 13, moved to Connecticut. My mom got transferred from her job working for this bank mortgage company. And we were in Fairfield County, Connecticut, and that really sucked.
Fairfield County,
Connecticut really sucks. If anybody's listening to this from Fairfield, you suck.
Yeah.
Just own up to it. You have a garbage community, and there's nothing going on for you, and you eat culture alive.
Well, my whole opinion of Connecticut is just sort of like a cheese sandwich. Like it's just,
it's funny
I just
because
think
now
of a cheese. Like I just think boring, and I think of nothing.
Oh yeah,
unique.
There's very little unique about it because like if you're looking for quaint New England kind of charm, you go to Massachusetts, you go to Vermont, you go to New Hampshire,
right?
You go to Maine if you really want to freeze your ass off. But Connecticut, it's just a fucking snooze. And in fact, it's funny because I was driving through Connecticut recently, and Connecticut has its own sort of like the New Jersey Turnpike kind of rest stops.
Right.
They've been opening their own along various highways in Connecticut, and most of them are populated by like your usual there's a Papa Gino's chain of some like crappy pizza. I don't know. You got your McDonald's, you got your basic fast food, but now the one I'm seeing popping up everywhere, it's called Cheese Boy.
Cheese Boy?
Cheese Boy, and it is a grilled cheese sandwich shop, and it's the boringest grilled cheese sandwich shop because here in New York, we've got Melt Shop. I don't know if you've ever been.
My old job was across the street from Melt Shop.
There you go.
Every week.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it?
It's amazing.
Because you get your bacon or your fried chicken, whatever the hell you want in that bastard.
Yeah.
You can have the shop tots. Let's get you a sponsorship.
Yeah, Melt Shop. I'm a big fan, and let's do business. Let's make it happen.
Unequivocally, yes. So,
Cheese Boy.
From what I saw, it was just like you get a sandwich and there's some tomato soup, and get back in your car and go.
It's just basically like a bunch of children making a grilled cheese sandwich. And
just sad children working at the rest stop. It's like hopefully it's a summer job for them at best, and not like something that's going to carry on. But that was part of what I picked up on is I start going to middle school in Connecticut, and I'm just like nobody around me. Like we're within like 45 minutes, like a Metro North train ride from New York City, hub of culture, finance, government. You frickin' N, and nobody has any aspirations. Like I'm just like I don't think it was like an essay or anything. It was just like people in I think one of my English classes they were sitting around in a circle, and everybody's talking about like what do you want to be when you grow up, or what do you want to what kind of goals do you have in life?
Yeah.
And so many dudes, in fact, a couple of them were bold enough to say, I shit you not, they were sitting around and they were saying, I'm gonna like a little house in the woods. I'm gonna grow some weed. I'm just gonna like lay back, man. And it's like, who the fuck are you, Wooderson from Dazed and Confused? Like, what the fuck is this? Really, nobody wants to like go to New York, make it big, and nobody wants to like become a piece of shit, investment banker, retire at 40. Like none of you have anything big as a goal. I'm the only one here with any dreams. Damn it!
Right. No, I felt kind of the same way with my hometown because Calvert, like it's I believe it's one of the richest counties in Maryland.
Probably, yeah.
But there isn't much there. It's like a lot of people who either grew up there and that's where they're live and that's where they live, or it's a lot of people who like work in DC and are very rich.
Sure. I mean, that's the thing is, like there's, as somebody who was very proudly, a Maryland boy, born and somewhat raised, I will fully admit there's not a lot going on in Maryland. It's like, I actually remember I had just moved to Connecticut, and then a couple of years later, the Blair Witch Project comes out.
Right.
As you recall, there's Burkittsville, Maryland. And so, like, I was one county over from Burkittsville. And I could tell everybody, like, that didn't happen. I was in Maryland in 1994. I was a weird child who watched the news all the time. And there was never any like lost hikers. I don't remember this at all. I remember like staying up all night watching Princess Die and the car crash on the news in Maryland. I don't remember anything about like freaking hikers.
Right.
But you still had like people who believed that movie was real, even after it came out, and even after like there was like interviews with the actors who were in it. People still thought like, oh yeah, like the bumblefuck Burkittsville, everybody must die there, just like stumbling around in the woods.
Yeah, there's just year after year, just bodies of hikers.
Oh yeah,
just littering the woods of Maryland.
In that, just piling up in that one shack.
Yeah, just the one shack.
Stacked in the corner.
Exactly. They just pile them up like unread scripts in a Hollywood agent's office.
There you go.
I read an article and I saw a picture of like just stacks of scripts, and it was like, oh my gosh, don't try to get anything made in Hollywood. Just do it yourself.
That's a big part of it. Yeah, that's the great thing about how democratized media is becoming now, like with podcasting, with web videos, et cetera. It's not just about being able to get your thing made, but get it out there, because you can make however many friggin' movies you want. And up until, you know, the advent of, you know, the popularization of YouTube at large, like your best bet was like you either make your own DVD and give it to your aunt and uncle who gave you the money in the first place because they make bad decisions.
Right.
Or, you know, you sold it to some terrible little distributor who puts out all the crappy movies that you see reviewed on, you know, like best of the worst on Red Letter Media. Just the what's that, like, I'm not going to go down that path. Anyway.
Yeah, like all the stuff on Netflix that you see that has like 1 star, and you're just like...
Exactly.
And it's like, oh, a toilet comes to life and eats people's faces.
Right. The toilet comes to life, or it's just like it's a bunch of assholes out in the woods, and then suddenly they know karate, once again, quote unquote, and it's they're fighting off people in weird stringy rubber costumes, and like that was your one hope for getting any distribution, you know, pre like 2004 maybe.
Yeah.
Now you can put it online, and there's and the worst part actually is the fact that then you'll put it online, and then real media companies will see that, and they'll help you make Fred the movie, like turn your web series or whatever into the most puerile kind of thing that'll attract mass audiences.
Exactly. My ultimate hope is that, because there's so much like really cool stuff online in like different like genres. Like my hope is that I could do something like that, and people like, oh, he could do that for us for money.
Sure.
Okay, so you're grown up. So you're going to middle school in Fairfield, Connecticut. Are you? Are you? I'm trying to think, because you sort of have like an Orson Welles vibe about you.
Well, I'm definitely getting to that weight.
So are you entrenched in like film or comedy at this point?
A little bit. I mean, like I'm watching a ton of movies all the time. I always say, like, I started out as a horror film buff, and you know, I was watching everything, like Halloween, Friday the 13th, all the classics. The real thing that really got to me was Evil Dead, The Evil Dead, and Sam Raimi. Sam Raimi is still like my icon, and now when I'm shooting anything, I put on a suit. That's kind of his thing that he does. It kind of shows everybody who's boss.
Absolutely.
But and so watching those movies, and then eventually that sort of trickled into, I don't know.
What grabbed you about Evil Dead?
Just, there was a lot of things. Like one, like I saw it when I was way too young to be seeing it, especially with things like tree rape scenes.
Yes.
But it was clearly made for so little money, and yet it evokes such like atmosphere. There's those scenes like when they're outside, and it's just like pitch black sky behind them, some you know, lamps and whatnot lighting the foreground, and a bit of fog or mist or what have you. And it just looks like the surface of Mars, and it kind of almost puts a pit in your stomach that you feel how alone and isolated and cut off these characters are. Yeah, even as bad actors as they are, like you still sort of find a way to empathize with them. And then, like Raimi, I think was able to even with no training, especially no training in horror films. He was like a dumb comedy nerd himself. He loved like Three Stooges. He was able to sort of figure out, like, oh, the movie like this needs pacing. You need a big scare, and then long drawn out, like, build the suspense with the audience, and then big scare, and at the same time doing whatever he could to use the movie as a calling card. And so adding whatever kind of like crazy camera angles, like there's one where the camera kind of goes over Bruce Campbell's head, and this weird, very like a very wide angle, almost fish lens shot where like everything's just distorted. It really puts you in like just how crazy reality has gotten for this character.
Yes.
And then things like when like the evil spirit is roaming through the forest, and you're watching from that
and
perspective.
It's just racing through
the
woods.
It was almost like it was clearly a gag that he was picking up from like Three Stooges, but like he was giving the camera like a voice, Like it's that, or it's
Right.
like there's an overhead shot that people like to point out in film schools of like, it's going overhead over like the beams of the ceiling, and every time it passes over a beam, you just hear, vroom, vroom, vroom. Like that the camera has its own effect on the reality.
Yeah.
Which is like for, you know, like as I'm learning the language of cinema itself, that's fascinating to me. And I watched it for the first time when I was 7 years old, and that was clearly a mistake and kind of clearly messed me up for life. And then I see it again when I'm 15 years old, and I'm picking up more and more on like what movies are and how they're made and how they work and how they affect people.
Yeah.
And it's blowing my mind to sort of pick up on these things. And from there, I wind up like, I wind up branching out. I sort of like, people are telling me like, oh, if you liked the like movies that like what Sam Raimi's making, or Wes Craven, here's the things that were inspiring them at the time. And there's like, if you've ever seen, have you ever at least heard of Wes Craven's very, very first movie? It's The Last House on the Left.
Yeah, I've seen Wes Craven's Last House on the Left.
Yeah.
I've also seen the Igmar Bergman movie. It's kind of based on.
Virgin Spring, I think.
Yes. That was a film school discussion.
Exactly. There you go.
Yeah. Last House on the Left feels like you're watching a documentary of the murder.
At times. And then also there's fucking ridiculous points. Like the dumb Keystone Cop shit. It's like he almost has a good movie with that. It almost looks, it comes off as a really like, you don't know where this movie's coming from. What kind of maniacs made this? Maybe they really did kill a girl in the woods. You don't know. It all looks so like avant-garde, photorealistic.
Yeah.
But then like it cuts into like crazy lady with a chicken truck pulls up and helps the hapless cops, and it loses all that effect, all that momentum. Kind of the opposite of what Raimi was able to do. But so yeah, like learning about Virgin Spring, learning about Sam Raimi and all his friends when they were raising money for Evil Dead.
Right.
They started like driving taxis around Detroit in the 70s.
Yeah, I remember that from Campbell's book.
Yeah. For If Chins Could Kill, great book. And so they talked about like, oh, we envisioned ourselves as sort of like, De Niro and Taxi Driver. It's like, oh, I need to see Taxi Driver. And like, it builds this thing where suddenly I'm seeing all these different kind of movies I wouldn't have seen if I just stayed as some weird dweeb sitting in his basement watching
horror movies.
Friday the 13th, Jason Lives, the best one of the series, easily.
That was part 6?
That was, yes, because what was it? Part 4 was the one with Corey Feldman.
Yeah, part 4 was the final chapter, and I think 5 was the new beginning.
The new beginning, which was the fake out one where it wasn't really Jason, so fuck that shit.
Right.
And then 6, was Jason Lives, and that one was where it really was. It was like bonkers, just like cartoonish almost, where like he shoves somebody's face through like the wall of a bus, and it makes like the perfect like Looney Tunes imprint on the other side.
Yeah.
Like silly shit like that. Like I would have spent my life watching that forever. But yeah, like I'm seeing Taxi Driver. I'm like,
you're building like your language of cinema and storytelling
completely. And so like then it just becomes like a checklist of like, okay, now I just got to go through like every important movie, Godfather and Citizen Kane, all that stuff, and finally really being able to understand like, oh, this is what films can do. This is how it impacts our culture and our language. Yeah. It's still finding me like something like Taxi Driver, which is also one of my favorite movies now. It's like everybody knows that movie now because of like you talking to me.
Right.
And it's weird. It's still weird to me how like that scene, it'll get quoted, but it feels so completely out of context to the rest of the movie because people are sort of seeing it as like, oh, he's just being a badass. He's like a really tough guy. He's kind of ripped in that moment. Yeah. He's got his guns, et cetera, et cetera. But it's like, no, actually that point in the movie is like where he is reaching his most like abject low. Yeah. As like in terms of mental stability.
Yeah, he's losing it.
Yeah, he's completely lost it. Like he's one step away. Like he's about to, spoiler alert, shave his head and try to commit an assassination. But he's like, that movie is in itself. Like I say, like I went from watching straight up horror movies to movies that were almost about like existential horror. The idea that like you're losing your mind and you're being taken down this very dark path by something as simple as loneliness. The fact that he's just such a lonely, cut off guy, he doesn't know anything else but to just descend into violence.
Right.
And that are like Five Easy Pieces. First movie that really made like a Jack Nicholson a star. That movie, like that to me is kind of like it almost feels like a just a blueprint of like don't become this, because in that movie it's about Jack Nicholson's character. He's grown up in this very rich, very very cultured family. He's a classically trained pianist. He's got this great talent, but he doesn't want to fulfill it for whatever reason. He has this despair about him, and it leads him to just running around working on oil derricks and chasing loose women and just kind of just letting himself fall apart.
Yeah.
And because of whatever reason, he's terrified of what would actually happen if he actually stayed in one place and did what he was good at and what he knew was actually best for himself. He feel like that responsibility, that sense of whatever, it's terrifying to him, and he's constantly running from it.
Right.
And it's like I said, it's existential dread. Yeah.
Okay, so you're very very focused on existential dread.
Yeah, yeah.
Horror.
It's definitely a pattern.
Yeah. Is that a struggle that you relate to? These characters, the sort of like guy on a limb trying to keep it together.
Yeah. That feels accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm kind of the same way. When everything is going wrong, I'm just like, all right, I'm just gonna keep like if my life, like if everything in my life starts going wrong, it's just like everything's metaphorically on fire. I'm just sort of like, all right, I'm just gonna keep on walking through this fire.
Right.
And it won't burn me that way. If I just don't think about the fire, it will not burn me.
I'll just ignore it for as long as possible. Maybe it'll sit in my clothes a little bit, but I'll be fine.
Yeah.
I'll be fine as long as I just don't address this. Yeah.
Exactly. So okay, so you're entrenched in film, and did so you get from middle school through high school entrenched in film, and then you studied film in college. Where'd you go?
No, I did not. I actually it was one of those things where I just felt like by the time I was really getting to a point where I was like, I could do this. Like this is something I might want to actually make a living off of. I was reading so many sort of interviews and things with like Coen brothers and so forth, telling you like, you don't need to go to film school. Just like get a camera and shoot something. You can learn a lot of the technical stuff yourself. It's really about having good stories to tell.
Right.
And so I was absorbing all sorts of things. I was watching lots of stand-up comedy. I certainly would have said like, George Carlin was my king growing up. Like everybody else who comes on this would say.
What was your favorite Carlin special?
I mean, it was definitely certainly one of the post-wife dying ones.
Oh yeah, so
when he really got angry and dark. I will say it was my favorite, but the one that always sticks out to me is it was the birthday special that he did where Jon Stewart interviews him, and he's just sort of talking about his life, and he's still being just casually kind of hilarious.
Yeah.
Talks at one point about I don't know. It was both like it was funny and it was a great conversation, and like Jon Stewart, you're seeing like here's somebody who's like just coming into his peak himself, like right before he gets the Daily Show, I think, and like it's the two of them just talking shop in a very casual way that's still entertaining, even to somebody who's at this point I'm not a comedian. I'm not really into the whole thing of like, oh man, bachelorette parties, how crazy is that? Like It was just this frank discussion about his life and his philosophy on things, and still very funny. And then at one point he talks about like how drugs. He was very frank about like marijuana and cocaine and whatever else was great for me for a while, and then after a while I had to stop because it stopped working and it started harming.
Yeah.
And then I'm completely misquoting this, obviously. But
is that the one where he's like he writes sober and then
exactly? I was about to get to that. Yeah,
time to punch it up.
Yeah, now the real writing starts.
Yeah.
And so there was that, and I think like I can't remember the name of it now, but the one where I guess where he talks about like worshiping Joe Pesci.
Yeah,
that's
a good bit.
Yeah, it's one of the all-time. There was the closer on that, right? Like
on that particular special. Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, dude, Carlin was I didn't really start getting into him until I was in college, but that was probably the right time to.
That's where you can really sort of appreciate one like the structure and the format and just have like the craft of it all is
exactly
unparalleled.
Oh, absolutely. The guy, because he could be silly, hilarious, and then he could make some great points, and then he was also great at wordplay as well. He was like operating on every level.
Oh yeah, I mean, like the wordplay stuff was definitely like that was. Like, I always say like that's the pre-wife dying, because I really like to draw that sort of line in the timeline. But like the wordplay and so much from like the wacky weatherman stuff to up to when he's talking about like your shit is stuff and this stuff is shit. Like that's like it's so clean and it's so funny and it's so fun. And then when he gets angry after the wife, when he gets angry, that's where I start to really feel that emotional connection. And that's sort of what is kind of paramount to me.
Yeah. That's sort of like and because I imagine you're probably on board with a lot of his political philosophies. Although towards the end, he always strode that line between, like he was the first guy that was probably saying, a lot of don't discount the PC campus liberal folks, because they are capable of being just as bad. Like on Life is Worth Losing. Right.
Well, I mean that's the problem is like I mean. In like at least back in those days, in the context of the whole special, you could see where he's attacking people from all sides.
Yeah.
He's questioning and he's trying to make some sort of effect on the status quo, which I feel like that's got to be like the number one thing for any of us doing stand up is look at things differently and actually like see and try to break down where the power lies or where the like the things we take for granted lie.
Yeah.
And don't just don't just talk about how much you hate your ex-girlfriend. But yeah, and so like that'll like those specials on like taken as a whole are great for that. And now part of the problem I think with things like YouTube where you can dice things out and isolate them, it's you have some of those bits now becoming like fodder for like MRAs and the super anti-PC and
people missing the context.
Exactly. Or and trying to like even trying to pardon me.
No problem.
Trying to use his his use of the N-word as like permission that they can do it themselves.
Yeah.
And it's like
ignoring the actual point of the joke,
right?
Which was that words are not inherently offensive in context.
But they still have meaning.
They do still have meaning.
That's the thing is I think that I see stand-up comics that take that for granted. Like your words have meaning.
Yeah.
And you're
and for certain people, I just had like me and Mo talked about this a lot.
Sure.
This whole idea of like all the like, and I think I said to him, so I'm sorry if I'm repeating it, but like sometimes the people that are always crying like PC left and censorship are not only some of the biggest assholes I've ever met,
right?
But they're also some of the unfunniest people I've ever met.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's certainly not something I want to bring down your podcast with and litigate over a long period of time.
Oh yeah, and this fight's happening on Facebook right now somewhere.
Everywhere, all the time, but never ends.
Yeah,
nobody wins.
Yeah,
but it to me it just comes down to like, I mean that's the one thing I always worry about, and that's why I'm not doing as much stand-up comedy these days, but I do still write a lot. I never know when I'm actually going to feel like the next opportunity to really take on stand-up as opposed to storytelling, which I'm still doing quite frequently.
Yeah.
And then of course like all the video stuff and all these other sort of media projects take a lot of time, but like the choices that I'm making in terms of the words I'm using and the targets that I'm taking on, it's really, really important to me, because I just think about like, my God, like think if like somebody like Carlin was alive today and he saw people taking him out of context like that, or using his shit in a way that was completely against what he intended. And even now, like have you heard of this thing about going on about with the Trump campaign and the Pepe the Frog?
I have.
Yeah. I feel so bad for the dude who created that.
I know.
Like the Boys Club, comic that he made. It's really funny. It's really charming. And yet, like, Pepe the Frog is now, it's listed by like the Southern Poverty Law Center
as a hate symbol.
As a hate symbol, and it's like, that's not what that was. And like, you took somebody's creation and you just turned it into something awful and evil.
I know.
Oh man, and like, I'd hate for like, I don't think that there's much risk of it happening to me, but I still feel like, oh man, it's like, that feels like the worst thing that you could possibly do with something that I create.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, well, hopefully no one twists Jake Hart into being like a simile, even though he kind of fits the iconography.
Well, that's the thing about
I love Jake, but and I've said that to him when I was on a roast with him.
Oh yeah, the great roast.
Yeah,
but like, I mean, that's Jake almost puts himself into that corner. As much as I love the guy, he's one of my dearest friends now. Mm-hmm. Is like he builds this image of himself, mm-hmm. and I think it helps with a lot of the material that he works with, his real stories and some of the acting that he does. That he's this tough, ballsy guy.
Yeah,
deep down, he is a sweetheart. He's a complete sweetheart.
Exactly. That's why we're friends.
Exactly.
Because
I mean, well, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no. This is good stuff. So,
mm-hmm.
Okay. So, what did you actually end up going to school for?
I mean,
not to get too off topic.
I only barely declared my major, mm-hmm. Which was going to be a double in philosophy and communications, and then I dropped out.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
How many years did you do? 1. Oh yeah.
And then
so you're like, I got this.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't exactly that. I did that. I'm at this crappy little college because, like I said, I was a bad student. So the plan was mm-hmm. go to college, get some decent grades, and transfer to a better school.
Right.
My dream was like Fordham or something like that. Mm-hmm. And then I was attacked in my dorm room.
Oh no.
Yeah. I had this whole incident happen with my roommate and a neighbor where they played a prank on me that went really, really wrong. And it wound up involving police and charges and a whole sort of tribunal thing at the school.
What happened?
The short story is there was a day where I was playing hooky from class. Mm-hmm. I'm sitting around in the dorm room alone in my PJs, and we had this one neighbor who I interacted with. He was a nice enough guy. His name was Mo. Mm-hmm. He was this like 7 foot tall, big, bulky football player. Mm-hmm. And Mo would like pop his head in our room occasionally, and he'd say things like, hey Alex, I want to fuck you. I want to fuck you in the ass. And it's like, oh no, Mo, you can't. Our love was not meant to be. And apparently, like, playing along with him like that encouraged him. Uh-huh. And so one day, the door to the room was locked. I know it was.
Right.
And so I hear the door unlock, and I think, oh, that must be my roommate, Andre. Instead, it's Mo. And behind Mo is this big throng of all our other neighbors, these, 19, 20-something young dudes mm-hmm. who are just cheering and hooting and hollering as Mo marches into the room and backs me into a corner, grabs me, and starts dry humping the shit out of me.
Oh my God.
And just like kind of like violently, just like roughing me up practically.
Right.
And I'm trying to fight him off. I don't want this. Uh-huh. And I can't really get around. He's behind me, and I'm trying to throw a punch, and I can't quite get it. And then finally, he, I guess, spent. He lifts me up, and I'm not a small dude. He lifts me up, and he threw me into a closet, and exits to roaring applause.
Jesus.
Yeah.
I would be everyone that I saw after I got out of that closet would be getting punched in the face.
I wanted to burn the building down.
I imagine so.
Yeah. So.
So you were done with college by that point.
It wasn't even that though. That was the thing is I would have just let it go. Unfortunately, I was on the phone with my mom at the time, so she heard it.
Oh my God.
And then she called the cops. Mm-hmm. And the cops caught up with Andre and Mo, arrested them, and then because those two guys were like big men on campus,
yeah,
word spread very quickly. Hey, Alex called the cops on Andre and Mo, and I became a wanted man.
Right.
Like they were, I locked the door yet again, and they were like, our neighbors were just like huddling outside the door, making these threats that I could just hear through the door.
Right.
I think even one of the RAs was in on it, and
God,
I just
damn it.
Yeah, I did not feel safe at all. I had to sneak out at one point. I went to the campus radio station. I spent several nights like sleeping on the couch in the office there.
Right.
And the school just did nothing to help me. And I was having people I'd never seen before, never met before. If I'm walking through the campus, some guy is like crossing my path, and he's like, "Hey, Alex, heard Mo got suspended. I bet you're real happy about that." And no, I'm not. I'm not happy about anything.
Right.
It just became like this, I don't know, Kafkaesque kind of situation where I just felt all eyes were watching me at all times.
Right.
And what authorities were in place were doing nothing for me. It didn't help that the school was I guess under construction at the time. They were building new wings.
Right.
So I couldn't find like a campus counselor. Like I couldn't.
Oh no.
I literally
The one time you really need one.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I think that in general, I think the school administration was kind of built to not actually help any of the students. At one point, when I was actually trying to talk to, the department, guide about my major
Right.
for philosophy, I'm in the hallway for all their offices during what's supposed to be their office hours. Nobody's there. Like it's a ghost town. It was not a good school. Because once again, it was in Connecticut.
Right.
So, like whatever they can do to not help you.
Yeah. Like they're just thinking about how their lives ended up that they're there.
Right. It's just the ennui of higher education, I guess. But
God, that's fucking terrible, man.
It was
Sorry
really
you had
bad.
to go through that.
Yeah, and so I just by the end of that semester, I was a nervous wreck.
Yeah.
I couldn't go back, and just sort of fell off. And I took a little time off, and I tried to go to a community college. It's like, oh, let me at least like get some classes. And I took like a photography course,
Yeah.
and like a design course, just things like just to have an outlet. And then spring break happened, and I had a nervous breakdown. And I collapsed one day in my parents' kitchen, and I didn't know what to do. And I
Like panic attack.
panic attack and just everything. Like my body just like stopped working. I don't know, and I couldn't go back after that, and I just kind of spent a long Brian Wilson period in my bed,
Right.
Just not doing anything and thinking about my own mortality. And then I spent about a year doing that, and then I started saving some money and moved to Brooklyn because I thought, well, if I'm really gonna if my life is gonna be fucked up, I might as well just go out like flame out.
And so you were like,
big.
I can go do that in New York.
Pretty much.
What were you doing for work at the time?
Well, so in Connecticut, when I was just coming out of the Brian Wilson phase, I was a manager in a video store because
Nice.
obviously, and I was kind of known as like a walking IMDb there. People like it was in New Canaan, which is like where like Paul Simon and Brian Williams live.
Yeah.
And like they would come in and just be like, I'm looking for a certain movie, and I would say like, oh, okay, well, what are you in the mood for? What is a movie that you've liked watching recently? Like a movie phone. And I was able to guide them directly to like, oh, well, if you're looking for a good World War II movie, here's Patton, here's or here's The Big Red One, like a little obscure thing, or if you're looking for something more mainstream, here's this, here's that, and it was a valuable asset that they still got away with only paying me about $8 an hour for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was that. I always that was like my dream retail job when I was younger. I was like, oh, I'll work in a music store or a video store. That'll be fun.
Oh yeah. I thought it was great for me too. Like, I mean, there was obviously no way to advance or anything, but at least for like being like a 20-something who has no idea where his life is going, like it's a good pit stop.
Yeah, you're surrounded by things you like.
Yeah, it's a nice little comforting sort of little warm cubby for me.
Yeah.
And then I find out that word got back to my grandmother that like, oh yeah, Alex is what's he doing these days? He's a manager in a video store. And apparently my grandmother's reaction to that was, isn't that a job for retarded people?
God damn it.
Right? So there's that.
So supportive.
So So that sort of happened, and like it just like once it became apparent, like there's no room for me to advance in this. There's no way that I'm going to be I'm not going to own the business one day or anything like that. I decided, well, I mean, like I want to be writing. I want to be doing something creative.
Yeah.
And I don't feel supported in that way in any capacity in Connecticut.
Right.
So I'm going to Brooklyn. Fuck you, mom and dad. I'm out. And
was your relationship with your parents like? Was it good at that point, or no? Or was it like? Was it like you and your grandma? It doesn't seem like there's. Some...
It was. That's the thing is dynamics shifted very quickly because I remember like when I grew up like very young, I was very close to my dad.
Yeah.
My dad shared my first beer with me when I was 4. So there's that. And then things sort of shifted, I guess, sort of just out of high school, where I started becoming more close to my mom. Before that, like my mom was the breadwinner in the house, and so she was often more of an authority figure. And I don't do well with authority,
right?
And we came to blows emotionally quite a few times. And then with college, we became a little bit closer, and then the tide started to really turn. Right before I was about to move out, when my dad was telling me I'm a loser for wanting to move out. And my mom was not good with it because she'd already seen how bad things went in college with me when I was away. Right. But she ultimately like sort of, allowed me to go through with it. And then the night I moved to Brooklyn, like I'd taken all my bags on the Metro North, went down to Grand Central, trains to East Flatbush with my new apartment. Right. And it was about 10 o'clock at night. I get a phone call from my mom, and she has told me she is divorcing my dad. And she specifically, they went to the gym together, and she told him, she got very teary, and she started telling my dad, I want to have sex again, but not with you. God. Which is props to mom.
That's a great exit.
Well, the problem was it was
exit.
It was too good because dad then immediately exerted his own sort of revenge and took all of her money out of the savings account, got a big fancy lawyer, and she's paying alimony now. Jesus. To him. Yeah.
That fucking sucks.
It really sucks. It's entirely unfair.
Oh my God.
And so that's sort of like I moved to Brooklyn. I have this independence, and now I sort of feel like I have to keep all these things together in some capacity, emotionally or familial, from a distance. I'm just I'm like an old timey phone operator where I'm just like picking up plugs and putting them in different sockets,
putting them into different things. Yeah, that's to me like one of the signs of really growing up is that there's there's maturity and emotional maturity, which I don't think are the same thing, because I think that you can still be into the same things you want to be in and still be a mature adult as well. That's what I tell my girlfriend when I say, oh, there's this anime I just discovered. But the capacity for managing a shitstorm is a big grown-up tactic. It's the same thing of like
it's a real rite of passage.
Yeah, it's a major rite of passage. It's like because as I'm sure as you know about me, I managed this same similar shitstorm, and I've got my next one that shows. Oh man, I really got to get to the dump again. I got shit to talk about, but to be able to have all of that swirling around you and still be able to, but still be able to go to New York and like pursue something.
Sort of. I mean, what wound up happening is I came to New York and I had a bit of money saved, and it became very quickly apparent that it wasn't going to last me very long. Yeah. And so I just sort of went from like, I was just writing a lot and not really knowing what to do with the writing because it was like sketches or little short stories, and I just had I didn't know like oh, you can just like send them to places and submit them. Yeah. I thought like some magical fairy just takes them off your computer and publishes them in the New Yorker. And like working these like bizarre like temp jobs to try to just make my little pittance of a rent, and it just sort of slowly became more about like keeping myself afloat.
Yeah.
than actually finding my creative outlets. So it actually took me, like, I moved to New York, to Brooklyn in late 2005. And I didn't start doing, like, I didn't realize, like, oh, I can do something with my writing and turn it into stand-up or something like that.
Yeah, I'm
until
curious
2009.
Okay, so
There's a long period
2009 is when you first did stand-up. I'm always curious about people who I know more from the storytelling community, what their history and experience with stand-up is. So where were you starting when you first started?
So my very first mic was actually at Comics on 14th Street.
I remember it.
Yeah,
R.I.P. It's a great club.
Yeah, I didn't actually find out until very recently that Cambry Cruz, who now has QED, she was their booker, and that was like, that's amazing to find out. Unfortunately, I only did one open mic there.
In Ochi's Lounge, yeah.
In Ochi's Lounge.
Yep.
And then because I didn't actually know what to do in terms of, like, material, I was never very good at, like, writing set up punchline. I tried to do stand up in, like, a high school talent show.
Right.
And because I didn't know how to write jokes, I just told a story on stage. And I wasn't booed off, but there was definitely crickets. And at one point, because it was a talent show, so the audience is just people's parents,
right,
waiting to watch their stupid kid do, like, sing Vanessa Williams. I heard a parent in the audience say, "Fuck this shit," and bounced out. Like, you could hear, like, the big, like, auditorium doors slam. Yeah. So that sort of put me off stand for a while, and then because I still didn't know how to write jokes in any like standard format or structure, once again I just tell a story at Comics at this open mic, and it's a very lewd story that even my wife has not heard, and she will continue to not hear. Sorry, darling. But it's become kind of my fuck you story.
Yeah.
If I'm at like a storytelling mic or even a show, and I kind of feel like I don't like this audience. Right. I don't like how the vibe in this room. I'll pull that one out of the satchel and go to town and make everyone feel real bad about themselves.
Right. Have I heard this story?
I've told it at the dump once, and it was just because it was a night where it was just sort of escalating gross stories.
So okay, I think that's probably then if that was happening that night, I probably told the story about us fucking a guy's fiance. Maybe.
Oh man. Yeah.
Accidentally, of course.
Oh yeah. No, it just happens. It just slips in there.
Yeah. Come see my one-man show. There's context to that. Bringing up context again.
But so yeah,
so yeah, New York was like kicking, like beating you up.
Yeah, pretty much. It was just a matter of, like, I don't know what to do with myself other than just like keep taking whatever jobs are thrown at me, and with every job and every slightly higher paycheck that I'm getting, like, more of my time is being demanded of me, and so all I'm finding time for at a certain point is just like doing like late night like open mics at places and karaoke. Those are my two outlets.
Right.
And karaoke actually was they were actually doing karaoke at Comics that same night where I told that terrible story. And I like that was the one thing that actually kept me coming back to Comics. Was this gal named Sabrina, who was like a karaoke hostess in the main bar area outside of the main theater. It was a good time, and then I made a pass at her and had to stop going.
Oh no.
So there was that.
My experience with Comics was a couple of great experiences at Ochi's Lounge, and then I tried to, because I was working at Radio City Music Hall at the time, a bunch of people wanted to come see me do comedy, so I was like, oh, I could probably do one of those 15-person bringers.
Oh yeah.
And then I had to reschedule because snow happened, and then I sat in the green room, was told I couldn't go on, and I was really sad, and it was really sad to the box office girl, and she gave me a drink ticket, which I kept because I wasn't drinking at the time. And now that's all.
This useless trinket. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yes. Well, it was a good gesture because I was really upset.
Right. Well, you didn't meet the bringer, or they just ran out of time?
No. I didn't meet it. Like, I had all these people bailing me last second. I was like,
as they do. Yeah. That's the thing is, I've never done a bringer so far, just because I know I can't count on anybody else, but like my mom and my wife.
Yeah. Well,
that's about it.
Yeah. Well, luckily, I'm now at a place where I know what they can offer, and I don't want it.
Oh, sure. Because most of the time they offer jack squat.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the thing. So I bounced from sort of like open mic to open mic, and then finally I sort of found my place, what felt like a good place, with Laughing Buddha. Please don't hate me, as I know many are wont to do these days with the mention of that particular franchise.
Sure.
But I will say, like, as somebody who is starting out, finding a voice, if you will, and trying to figure out, like, even just like, do I even belong with these people?
Right.
Like all these other comedians around me, I don't feel like I'm one of them. It's still like Laughing Buddha was nice, it was warm, it was inviting.
Yeah.
And then it became very apparent. It was like, if I'm going to keep coming here, they're going to want me to take classes and do all that, and that's something I never wanted to do.
Yeah.
So
I was the same. I went to college for theater. I did a semester on comedy. I just wanted. I hit a certain point where I was like, I'm done with school. I'm going to just go out and do it.
And it was in college. I think one of the first stories I heard from you was you telling about, like, you were in a short film, I think.
Yeah.
And you went to France and you actually were doing clowning out in public.
I was doing mime in public.
Mime, of course. Yes, please. My God, how could I?
Yeah. There's video evidence of that too.
Yes. That's the thing is, like, that was like, I was like, oh wow, this guy, like, you have miming, like, talents and experience. You got to go to, was it Cannes?
Yeah, it was Cannes.
It was Cannes. My God.
Yeah,
like,
Cannes is spectacular, and also south of France in May is never a bad place to be.
No. I mean, I can't speak to it myself. I've been to France once for a wedding because this particular couple really likes to jerk people around, and it was a really good time. But yeah, like as somebody who wants to be a filmmaker, etc.
Yeah,
Cannes is kind of the dream, is it not?
Well, you could probably get a short film in.
Yeah. I mean, that was the thing. Is like during that one point, like with the Brian Wilson phase and dropping out of college, I had this grand idea for a series of short films that would sort of come together as an anthology, and it never gelled because it would cost way too much money and nobody was willing to give me any. But my idea was like I could make these things that were like very artsy fartsy silent films. And my goal was, like, I'll put out one at a time and then be able to pull them together. But at the very least, like, I could have like short films at a bunch of different film festivals.
Yep.
And then, like I said, it like many of my plans, it just never came together, largely because of money and interest.
Yeah. Well, for Cannes, I found I had a different experience than some of the group there. First of all, just going there is incredible because if you're credentialed, then you can get tokens to go to screenings, and you can, like, seeing famous people is always fun. But
it's half the reason why we're in New York, isn't it?
Yeah. And then the context and then just the ability to get yourself in front of people is really fun and is for me part of the experience. And then someone else who was in my film, she got cast in another movie from being there.
Wow.
So I sound like every industry person. There's potential for it to yield some positivity.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And also it's just an incredible experience. If you go there thinking I want to be in France, be at Cannes, and then whatever else is gravy, then it's definitely worth it. But
you get exactly what you want there.
Yeah. So so you were doing stand-up, and then you eventually transitioned into storytelling because that's more of your form, and I do think that that's more of your form. Tell me about the genesis of the Dump web series coming together. Is this your first major
video
project?
The first thing I've really made, and it wasn't just me running around with the camera and just catching stupid little things, and then it come nothing I've ever tried to make before ever came to anything.
Right.
This is the first thing where it's really something, and it's definitely been a tough project. It started with, I was doing all this stand up, and I could be funny here and there. I never really felt very consistent about it, and then finally I picked up on the Dump. And it was my first storytelling mic. I went out there, didn't do great the first time around, but Jake didn't rip me to shreds. Like he seems ready to do it any moment.
Yeah.
And then going back the second time, actually, I told a story about New Haven, And because of his Connecticut background, he's like, oh, hey, me too. Like, and that sort of started to develop a bond. And now he and I are like very good friends.
Yeah.
And somebody like he was at my wedding. Somebody I feel very, very, very close to now. And so as a result, like we were working on various things. Like we were in a sketch group together at one point. Didn't really work out. And as like early on in the formation of that group, he was telling me like, the dump needs to be something. Yeah. And it's true. Like Jake is sitting on something that has like way more potential and or like already has some like influence that I think any of us really like even believe. Like it's.
Well, it's a tone in storytelling that isn't the traditional storytelling tone.
Exactly. Yeah. As we like to pick on there many times, like it's the anti-moth. There's very, very little lessons learned, and it's so. What I like about it is like it's reveling in this dirtbag sort of side of life. Yeah. But it's not quite. It's not looking down on it, but it's also not holding it up as a way of being. Which is sometimes like I kind of feel when I hang out with certain stand-ups and so forth, especially around the creek and the cave. Sometimes it feels like an emotional race to the bottom, and like who can make each other feel the worst, who had the worst life, who's the more impoverished dirtbag.
Right, the pain Olympics.
Exactly. And so that like with Jake, it's not quite that. It's just here's these life experiences, and they happen, and now everybody in this room who just heard it has to deal with it with me. Yeah. Like and that's it's so it's cathartic, it's relieving, it's funny. And I've been able to do like my sad sack story, like my college story. Yeah. And, nobody was crying, but nobody was like, you got beat up in college. What a loser. Like, right. Like it was, it's a good shared experience. And it's something that I think like now you have people like, you and I, like who we're making these connections through it. David Lawson, people who I think like are going places. Yeah. And like I think like what brings a lot of us together is the creek and the dump. Yeah. And so when Jake said like I want to be able to do something with this, I kind of said, well, I mean like are you trying to do like a web series or anything? He said, well, I mean like he made all these sort of like little excuses as he tends to do because he will let himself sort of get bogged down, I think. But I said like I have been to the creek and I've been to the dump and I've sat there and I've watched people and I've heard stories. And I've said like this could be something you can put on film. Yeah. This could be like an actual like cinematic experience of some sort. And so we started putting things together and he reached out to certain people. And one of the first people he came up with was Danny Hatch of Keith the Girl. And I said, that's it. Because like when you see our now pilot episode for the dump, that like what's on screen is exactly what I was imagining. Like when I hear his story, it has, because like he talks about like I was using webcams and this kind of weird, creepy experience like going to a stranger's house and anything could happen. Right. I had this immediate like Blair Witch Project, Paranormal Activity kind of sense of what the story looks like in my head, and we were able to do that. And so now like that's kind of become this format that we've come up with is Jake, and whoever it is telling a story in a bar. Day drinking is usually like the implication, and then being able to flash into this very stylized kind of recreation of what's being described in the story. Yeah. And each episode as we're making it is it's a different style. There's going to be something that's going to look very like Gilliam-esque, like 12 Monkeys. Yeah. And there's going to be like something that's going to be a little more Scorsese-esque. But each one like has its own feel and breaks the narrative in different ways, and it's exciting and really tough to do. Right. But I mean, like it's something that like I'm hoping at least at the end of the day, it's something that Jake can really hang his hat on. Absolutely. And feel good about.
Yeah. Well, the first episode is great, and it looks great. It's shot incredibly well.
That's all because the dudes that I hired. Our DP on that was Brian McCann, really, really talented guy. And then for the rest of the episodes that we've done, he was able to hook me up with all these different cinematographers who've all been like amazing and talented and put up with a lot of crap on my part in terms of like, I feel like this should look like, you know, and they were able to like do it like that, like nothing.
Oh, it's important to have those people.
Oh yeah. To translate my babble into something that's really like visually like amazing.
Yeah.
They do great work.
Absolutely. And where do you want to go with it?
I mean, for right now, like given how much time, effort, money, etc., it's taken. I mean, we're working on getting this first season, 5 episodes in the can. Hoping to get them released, the first one by December.
Okay.
And then let those sit out there for a while. And I think because trying to shoot a bunch of them at once turned out to be a real big boondoggle.
Oh yeah.
I think for going forward, we'll try to keep doing more, but it'll probably just be more one-offs.
Right.
And there's like there were people we couldn't get for various reasons for this batch of episodes who like I'm dying to.
Oh yeah.
Like there's Tiana Miller, who's amazing. It has a great story about Steve Wilkos.
Oh yeah, that's a great story.
Yeah.
I love that story.
Micah Fox. That's one of the things. Unfortunately, because of timing and scheduling and whatnot, this first season kind of winds up seeming like a bit of a sausage fest. We've only got one female storyteller in the group, sadly. But it's like so going forward, I definitely want to have Micah Fox, Tiana Miller, Corey Spencer, who's great.
Yeah.
And then dudes like you and dudes like David Lawson and some of our bros.
Absolutely. And I would love to be a part of it. If I think that would be great.
I mean, I'm
and David Lawson would be incredible. I love him.
Absolutely. And like there's a dozen stories I've heard from Lawson because he has way too many freaking stories. He's too good.
The guy's got like 10 one-man shows.
I know, like ridiculously prolific, making us all look bad. Cut it the fuck out, Lawson.
Oh yeah, that just reminds me. I gotta make sure I'm what my date for Solo Week is in December.
Right. Yeah.
So hopefully I can get that my show up and running. Do you want to do a one-man show eventually?
I've got a couple ideas for ones I'm going to be doing eventually. Like I don't know, like especially after what I've encountered with just the dump, and well also with the stage show that I've done. I'm getting better at managing ambition.
Yeah,
and there's things that I've imagined for like a maybe one of my best stories I've told. I've only told twice on stage, and it's about my asthma. I have very bad asthma, and it's a result actually of things that happened just post like my college dropout when I was living in a ramshackle apartment in New Haven. Basically, shitty apartment, poisoned my lungs, and now I'm near death at all times.
Oh no.
Yeah, and on top of that, I now have 2 cats, so I'm just at death's door all the time.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah, because I make bad decisions like everybody else, and so that's something I'm sort of toying with building into a one-man show at some point. I think like when I first came up with the idea, I think the working title was Take the Claritin, which is like a riff on Take the Cannoli. Leave the gun. Because in fact, my first cat, who's R.I.P. See you up in heaven, was named Coppola, and it's because she was an orange cat, and in the Godfather films, orange is a symbol of death. Wow. It foretells Luca Brasi there's oranges and then he gets strangled. There's Sonny Corleone is driving by a billboard for oranges and then he gets shot to death.
Yeah.
By the way, everybody see The Godfather if you haven't already.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
Yeah.
It's a lot to see in there.
And so, this orange cat seemed to portend death for me. And then about a month after I got the cat, I was hospitalized with a horrible asthma attack. And the doctor said that my breathing count, I don't know what it is. It was like 70 breathing units. And my grandmother, who was a nurse, told my mother later on, it's like, that's really bad. Like, you don't know how close he was to like being gone. Like, and so kept the cat anyway and continued living with her. And then lived cat-free in Brooklyn for a long time and wound up getting suckered into getting a new cat by a terrible girlfriend who then left me shortly thereafter. And here
Left
I
you
am.
holding the cat?
Yeah, holding the cat in the bag.
Jesus.
Yeah, and so now I have that, and then my wife has her own cat, and I'm not like I'm bonded with this cat of my own. I'm not going to let my wife get rid of hers,
Sure,
just because of my stupid need to live, and so so here I am, and it's a struggle against dander at all times, and that's eventually going to be a one-man show, I guess.
Well,
pre-book your tickets now.
Well, try not to die, man.
I'm working real hard, man.
Try not. I appreciate you doing this, man. It was great talking to you.
This is great. I really appreciate you asking me.
Awesome, man. It was great. And stay alive.
Working on it. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, folks, that's the show for the week. Thank you again for listening. You can subscribe to Between Awesome and Disaster on iTunes, and you can give us a rating, leave a review. All of it's appreciated, and it helps me out. If you want to check out my future stand-up dates, you can go to willcareyisfunny.com. And again, I will be doing my one-man solo show at the Tank on December 9th in New York City. And you can check my website or the links in the description when I have more information about that. And I will see you guys next week between Awesome and Disaster. Take care, everyone.